Today's guest is Dariann Leigh, an artist who works between Nashville and Minnesota. Dariann is fresh off the release of her latest single, Let Me Go, which has amassed close to 100,000 Spotify streams in just a few weeks. Welcome, Dariann.
Hi, how are you?
Doing so good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
That's
Excited
great
to
to
talk
hear.
with you.
Yeah, excited to talk
Yeah.
with you too. So let's start back at the beginning of your story. I'm a notice on Instagram you just recently posted some pictures of you as a little kid playing guitar and all that and singing. Talk us through where you were born and raised and how music first came into your life.
Yeah, I'm from Carlston, Minnesota, about as close to the Canadian border as you can get without actually being physically on it. I've always been into music. I have three older brothers that were always into the arts and music and theater, and they kind of all intertwined so well. And so when I was a kid, I really was just in that world of music immediately. And I struggled in school, and I used music as a tool to learn, whether it be math, English, spelling, you name it. I used it as a tool. And as I graduated high school, it really became clear to me that through performing at competitions or different shows that I was asked to sing at, music was really what I wanted to do. Even though I think education is really important, it became very clear to me that music is where I really sat and where I really felt the most me at.
Yeah, awesome. Let's dive into that a bit. Let's go back. What kind of music was around you as a kid? Like what genres were your parents musical? What were you listening to?
I grew up with a lot of the older country music. So Johnny Cash, Glenn Campbell, Waylon Jennings, Willie Nelson, you name it, I was listening to it. And my parents were in music when they were in high school and things like that, but they were never really the solo singer, the performer, or anything like that. And so growing up with three older brothers, though, I heard all the music you can name. I love Johnny Cash, Shania Twain. I heard every genre you can think of. And so it helped me a lot with gaining like a music education as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. When did you first start like either playing instruments or writing songs?
I learned how to play piano when I was in about fourth grade because I know I wanted to join band. And in band, you had to play piano for 2 years to play percussion. And so I played piano for a while. I played in our school band. And then I grew up and started really grabbing onto guitar. I was self taught for the most part. But then after a while of my parents hearing, the struggles of playing guitar, teaching yourself, my dad was like, let's get her some lessons so that way it's more enjoyable for everybody in the house to hear. So I started taking lessons and I've been into it ever since.
Wow. When did you start writing songs? Did you start on guitar or is it before that?
I kind of started before that. It was always writing music without any structure. You write a bunch of lyrics and I didn't really understand the verse one, verse two, or any of the actual mapping of a song. And so I definitely started at a young age, probably when I was like 14. But it was really as soon as I really got into guitar around like 15, 16 that I learned how to actually structure a song.
Interesting. When you started to finally learn how to structure songs, what did those songs sound like? Like, how do they compare to how you're writing right now?
They sounded like the typical like 15, 16-year-old girl in high school. They weren't there. I mean, everybody understands the struggle of those times and everything. So they're definitely much younger, more youthful. They're definitely within the country pop bridge. I've always kind of landed somewhere in there. But yeah, they're very youthful and much younger than I feel like my music is now.
Yeah, that's awesome. What kind of performing were you doing around that time? You mentioned you were in some choirs, I believe you said. What was your live experience at an early age?
I was in theater actually from the time that I was 6 until I graduated high school. So that kind of put me on a stage and got me used to it. I was always in choir and band, but I actually wasn't in choir too much in high school. I kind of joined in later on. But I was doing competitions in the area, like talent shows, things like that. And I got into that. And through that, people started hearing about me word of mouth and started hiring me to sing for them. And so, bless their hearts for trusting a young kid to come up on stage with a guitar, hardly really knowing what they were doing and playing. But without them, I feel like I wouldn't have the confidence to do it how I do it now. So I'm really grateful for those learning experiences.
Was that hard for you at first? Like, were you nervous performing at a young age like that, or were you always kind of a natural at it?
I feel like I was somewhere in between nervous and comfortable. Like I wasn't terrified, but I wasn't necessarily like, this is my place. I love standing here yet. It took me a little bit of interacting with crowds to figure out how you're supposed to speak to an audience because you would know it's difficult to figure that out as you're performing. Sometimes you say stuff and you're like, ugh. But no, it was definitely, I was nervous, but I was kind of becoming more naturally comfortable with it as I was on stage more often.
That's awesome. And were those always country performances you're doing with other people, or did it kind of vary?
It kind of varied. Some of it was solo and some of it was with others, but it's mostly within, again, the country and pop kind of genre, but definitely based on the place I was singing, I kind of varied it a little bit. So if it was like for older people, I'd sing more older country, and I kind of tried to pick my songs for my audience.
Awesome. So yeah, at some point, it sounds like you decided you wanted to be an artist. What was that time for you? Was there a single moment where it's like, this is what I want to do, or did it kind of just gradually grow over time into that?
I'd say it was kind of gradually. I graduated high school and I did the whole, you need to have your life together. You have to know what you're doing. So I was like, okay, cool. I'll go here for college and I'll go for English education and maybe I'll try to teach music too. And as I was there, I was like, wow, I feel like I kind of made that choice because I felt like I needed to rather than wanting to. And so the more I was there, it really hit me that as I saw people that were just engrossed in music, I was kind of jealous of it. I wanted to be just in music. And as I was kind of looking into programs there, I was like, but this isn't really what I want. I want to be like an artist that plays music and writes music and is in Nashville and whatever. And so it's definitely within that first semester of college that I was in that I decided, okay, I love all of this education stuff. I love the college life and everything, but I think it's time for me to make the step to actually becoming like an artist. And I found people to mentor me. Actually, we kind of found each other. And I ended up working with other artists that were so helpful in kind of guiding me and helping me know where to take the footsteps, because that's really hard to figure out, like what your first steps should be.
Interesting. Did that all happen in Minnesota, or where was that happening?
So it was only about 2 hours from where I'm from. I went to the University of North Dakota, so it wasn't too far from here. And I'd opened up for another artist, Jake McVeigh, and he really helped me and helped me navigate where exactly I was going.
Interesting. That's always so helpful to have a mentor, especially, in those places where you're not just surrounded by musicians like that.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's such a weird thing to figure out where you're supposed to go. So it just made it easier. Like you kind of have a guiding hand being like, don't go there, but do this, and don't do that, but do this. And I feel like we all need that. It's so helpful.
100%. Yeah. So then at some point you decided to go to Nashville. What was that like for you? I mean, was it just right after the first semester of college, or was it a bit of gap in between? What was the story behind all that?
There was a little bit of a gap in between. It was, I guess it'd be between the fall and then that later summer is when I ended up going to Nashville. And that was really just, I feel like starting out as an artist, it's really overwhelming because there's branding, there's imagery, there's all the different things. And I was kind of navigating all of that and trying to figure out who I am and what I want. And when you're only like 17, 18, that's such a hard decision to make because you have so much life to live. And it kind of ended up being a thing where I was like, okay, I have these songs. I feel like these are who I am. And so we went down to Nashville to record them. And I've been lucky to travel throughout my life. So it wasn't like a crazy whirlwind of like tiny, tiny town, but it was definitely different being surrounded by people that love the same things that I do. It was really cool because you felt like you were kind of at home.
Yeah. So do you go down to Nashville just to record it first, or do you actually like move down there and kind of locate down there?
So I went down there to record, but I was there for probably almost a month. So it's kind of like almost moving there, like dipping my toes in the water,
Okay.
but not yet jumping in, which was helpful though, because it gave me a good idea of what I'd be getting myself into later.
Yeah. What were your first impressions of it?
I was kind of nervous at first because there's so many musicians. Everybody's a musician that you meet, and it's almost overwhelming, but also inspiring. Like you want to be so ready for it and not kind of get down on yourself. But I feel like in an area with so much talent, it's easy to get down on yourself, which I did a little bit at first. So it was overwhelming in a way of trying to kind of keep my head on right, I guess you could say. But after I finally talked with other artists, and luckily the people I was recording with was a household full of musicians, and they were all kind of talking to me about when they moved to Nashville and how they went through things. So again, it was another situation where kind of helped me and see like, oh, we need to like tell her how this is, otherwise she's just going to struggle. And so I appreciate that a lot because it definitely gave me like a little more pep in my step.
Yeah, for sure. Once again, it's kind of that mentor thing, having people to actually
Yeah,
help you personally. Yeah, that's huge, I'm
exactly.
sure. So when you went down there to record, what was the recording process like for you? Was that your first time ever recording your material?
Yeah, I had played a little bit of like a guitar vocal recording all at the same time once for a Christmas song years ago, just to give to like family members. but it was my first time legitimately recording like in a little home studio, and it was cool. It was different than I think it is now. When I record music, we did vocals and we did all the instruments, whatever. Your scratch vocals is what they called them. And then you kind of just go into laying out everything. And it was really cool because, again, they were kind of really willing to teach me everything, which helped me because I felt like I was able to know what we were doing, but not only just go through the motion, but actually understand it, which helped me a ton now, knowing what is exactly going on too.
Interesting. Yeah. So after that point, were you between Nashville and Minnesota? Did you just go back to Minnesota, or kind of what was your location like at that point?
I realized then how badly I wanted to live in Nashville, but I decided that I really wanted to hone in on my home area and just like the state of Minnesota as a whole, kind of get the fan base and get the support and then make that move. So I've been traveling back and forth between it. Obviously, through the pandemic, it's been a bit different, but I've been traveling back and forth and planning to make the move hopefully within the year.
That'd be so cool. What's the music scene like in Minnesota? Kind of tell us more about that and how it compares to Nashville's music scene.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's kind of like down home in a way, and maybe I feel that way just because I'm from Minnesota, but there's a lot of associations and a lot more artists than I think I even realized when I got into it. I wouldn't say I work with, but I am in the Midwest CMO, which is just a company business group organization that works with artists all throughout the Midwest. And it makes it really cool because as soon as I became aware of them, it kind of made the world a little bit bigger, but also a little bit smaller because you knew everybody. And so I would say the Minnesota scene is definitely alive. It is thriving, but it's still, when you get into like Nashville, it's not ever exactly the same, but it's definitely close.
Yeah, sounds like it. That's awesome. What kind of music is like the most prevalent in Minnesota, would you say? Is country like a big part of it, or is it mostly rock, or what?
I would say probably country, and mostly in countries, but I would say, but obviously like anywhere you hear different music everywhere, but I would say primarily, yes, country is a big Minnesota fan.
Awesome. So yeah, tell us more about your live playing experience. It sounds like you played, quite a few venues in both Minnesota, maybe Nashville. What have been some of your favorite shows and like the things you've learned from playing live?
Yeah, I feel like every show is different in itself, and that's something that I love about music because I've worked 9 to 5, but what's so different about music is it's not the same thing every day. Every venue is different, every audience is different, and it makes it exciting and just a whole different way of walking in and knowing what you're doing, but not knowing what's going to happen throughout the night. I would say my favorite places to play are always writers' rounds. I love writers' rounds because they're so vulnerable and like broken down from like a huge let's have a good time show. But I always love the let's just turn up the music and just rock with everybody. And I've played at a lot of different lake locations in Minnesota, which is really fun. My first time playing in Nashville was crazy because it's kind of one of those moments where you're like, okay, this is a real thing, pep talk, now go. And it's so fun though, because again, it's like every time you play somewhere, you could play the same place 100 times, but every time is a little bit different, which makes it exciting, I feel like, for the artist too.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. So yeah, you released your song, Let Me Go, last month. Is that correct?
Yes, actually, it was just a few weeks ago, like 2, 3 weeks ago.
Wow, that's crazy. What was the process like for you to get that song, like writing it, then recording it, and then what's happened since releasing it? Like, it seems like it's taken off exponentially. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, I wrote that last February with Emily Fortney and Sky Claire in Nashville. And it was really fun to write with them because they had actually written my previous single, Wherever I Go. So it was fun to sit in a room and feel the vibe and kind of see how they write things, but also be able to contribute to it as well. And we were just talking about different chapters and seasons in your life that you're ready to move on from, whether it be relationships, friends, or just literally where you're at right now. And we came up with Let Me Go. And once we came up with that, we were like just tossing things in, like, this is exactly what we're going to do, setting the flame, whatever. And we're so excited. And so, again, that was last February. So I sat on it for an entire year. I always say it was burning a hole in my pocket because the whole time I felt like I was driving in my car, listening to it, like jamming out, but knowing very well that everybody around me was like, what is that girl doing? What is she listening to? And so it makes it really fun that, like, now other people are doing that and I'm not completely alone. But it was really I feel like in this song, I was able to hone in on my sound more. And I feel like you hear my voice more in this song than my other songs. Not that you didn't hear it, but like just in a different light. And so I kind of jumped in on the whole TikTok world, gaining some excitement there because that's just what everything is about right now. And it really seemed like people loved it. And I had just this feeling of, okay, so I need to work harder because people love it. And so that's what I was doing. I came up with content, made a plan, and released it. And it has been very unexpected too, because I didn't know what to expect when you get people loving it. I didn't know how many people would want to hear it, but yeah, the streaming numbers are crazy. It's kind of shocking at the same time too.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great song, so of course the numbers are going to be there.
Thank you.
So you mentioned you made a plan for, which is great. That's something I think a lot of artists need to recognize more, is the importance of getting this plan together for promotion and all that stuff.
Right.
What was a key part of the plan, you would say, that maybe helped the business aspect of helping this song get to close to 100,000 streams at this point?
I was really big on trying to get the hype for it. And I know as like artists, we always joke about, oh yeah, we have to get people so excited, love our music, whatever, because it's so hard to like promote yourself. That's what you're doing as an artist. But I just thought, because the world is where it's at right now, everything is just on social media. And I've always been big on posting on Instagram and doing all of that. But I've seen this flame go with all these artists on TikTok. And so I kind of wrote down what I saw was working for other people and what I saw them doing and that people were clicking with. And a lot of it was just upon relating to it. So I found different stories about the song and ways that I related to it that I thought maybe other people might too. So I made a big social media calendar where I literally went one day and took all of my photos for a month. And so I posted all of them, made a whole calendar, and the same with TikTok. It was all really just social media, which is so different than I feel like normal. But social media is such a huge thing that to not use it is kind of hurting yourself in a way. So I was trying to just mostly take off with what I could that's like literally in the palm of your hands.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's great advice. I mean, as someone who's dived more into marketing, it's important, I think, for artists to know that social media really is like the
Yeah.
thing that will get them off sometimes, and also to be current with what social media has taken off. Like you said, TikTok's
Yeah.
huge right now. And I think so many artists are kind of afraid of jumping into that because they don't know what to expect or how to do it. It sounds like you had the same feelings, but for the artists who do and that stay consistent, I've seen great results.
Oh yeah, it's crazy because I've seen even people that I know, they just post a little bit of their song and they talk about it and it just explodes. And I was like, I feel like I could do that too, but I don't know how to do it. So I like, it makes me feel old going on TikTok now because I have to like go on YouTube and search how to do things sometimes. And I was telling one of my younger friends that, and they're like, yeah, that's how I feel about Facebook. And I was like, oh, that makes me feel so old. But I just saw like the trends and I was like, okay, I need to get my butt in gear and do these because clearly it's working for something.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so cool. What are you excited for that's coming up now?
I have a few videos planned with Let Me Go that I'm super excited to finally get out there, just like the song. I've had them for a little bit. So I'm excited to finally have them up and have people able to see them. But I also have another song coming out sometime this summer. We don't really have a release date yet, but I'm really excited to release that and also just to get back into live performance because we're kind of starting to veer into that again. And I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's super exciting. Kind of a quick side question too. Sounds like you're still writing songs and all that. How has that been during the pandemic? Like, how is it? Have you had to write over Zoom? Have you gone to Nashville to write them in person? Like, what's the dynamic been?
It's been a lot of Zoom writes, which is so different because normally a write is kind of off the vibe of a room, whereas now everybody's in their own locations and you're trying to figure it out then. But luckily, I was actually doing some of those beforehand. So I felt like I kind of had a practice round at writing songs over Zoom. It's definitely different, but I almost feel like it makes you work faster because you know people are in their own house and they're kind of ready to get on with their day. And so it's definitely interesting, but I actually have really grown to like it.
Interesting. Yeah, it's almost like 2020 has changed so many dynamics of the music industry. And it's going to be interesting to see like how those carry forward past 2020. Like, will
Oh
Zoom,
yeah.
Zoom rights be like almost a new normal? It's gonna be weird.
I kind of think it is too. Like Zoom has totally just changed everybody's way of communicating. And it's been really cool to see though too. Also weird because you're not able to like I said, catch the vibe of the room. But it's cool though, because all of your friends can be from wherever. They can be on tour, they can be doing whatever. So it's like you said, definitely going to change the dynamic for the future.
Yeah, I think so. So what are your future goals for music long term?
Long term, one of my biggest dreams is to sing at the Grand Ole Opry. I toured it a few years ago, and I've always known I wanted to sing there, but in that moment I was like, holy, I definitely want to sing here.
Yeah.
But I just want to be able to tour more. After this year, it's just been so crazy with not being able to be out there so much. And so right now I feel like just because we've been missing out on so much of it, my goal is just simple, just like I just want to be out there. I just want to sing. I just want to talk to people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the whole music industry, I feel like it's just ready to boom. I feel like everybody's just
Oh
so
yeah,
antsy to get going again. It's gonna be crazy to see it all happen.
I agree. I'm excited to see it happen though.
Yeah, me too. Well, hey, I've enjoyed talking with you. It's been great hearing about your story and your experiences, and I've learned a lot, and I think others will too.
Thank you.
Where can people find you on social media?
I'm on all social medias, Instagram, TikTok, like we are talking about, Facebook, YouTube, all at Dariann Leigh. Actually, all of it is also on my website, just dariannleigh.com, where you can find all my tour dates, merchandise, and all my social medias and things like that.